In the span of a single generation, a tradition was born, not from ancient custom, not from a royal decree, but from a boardroom. Before the Second World War, a diamond engagement ring was a rarity, a curiosity. By the end of the century, it was almost universal, the stone itself abundant, worthless in any rational market. Yet somehow, it became the ultimate symbol of love, a promise sealed in carbon. The price of that promise, staggering. And it was all manufactured by an advertising campaign. In 1938, the De Beers Diamond Cartel hired an American ad agency. 9 years later, a copywriter named Francis Geraghty typed 4 words that would be called the slogan of the century. A diamond is forever. The rule that a ring should cost a month's salary. Later too, was not tradition. It was copy. The campaign worked so well that it reshaped an entire culture. But here's the unsettling part. It won. By every measure, the con succeeded. So how did a handful of executives turn a common mineral into the currency of commitment? And why, decades after the cartel's grip loosened, are we still paying the price? The answer is not what you expect. It begins with a problem, too many diamonds, and nobody wanted them. Imagine a world where a proposal didn't hinge on a tiny glittering stone. Before the late 1930s, that was reality. Most Americans saw engagement rings as optional, a nice gesture, but hardly essential. A couple might exchange a simple band, a family heirloom, or nothing at all. The diamond was a rare curiosity, not a symbol of eternal love. It had no tradition, no rule, no price tag tied to your salary. But then, a cartel faced a crisis. De Beers had mountains of rough diamonds, far more than the world wanted. They needed to manufacture desire. So in the late 1930s, they hired a powerful advertising agency. The goal? Turn a common stone into the ultimate proof of devotion. They planted a seed that a ring should cost a month's income. It was just a suggestion, but it stuck. On the eve of the Second World War. Only a small fraction of brides received a diamond ring. By the end of the century, that fraction had flipped. A single copywriter would soon coin a phrase so potent it would be called the slogan of the century. But first, the cartel had to convince you that you needed something you never knew you wanted. So how did a cartel decide to change that? In 1938, De Beers had a problem. Diamonds were just rocks, plentiful, cheap, and gathering dust in vaults. So they hired N.W. Ayer, a Philadelphia agency that knew how to sell the invisible. Ayer didn't pitch a gem. They pitched a ritual. They studied how Americans courted, how they proposed, what made a moment feel sacred. Therefore, they built a campaign around one idea. A diamond must be the only choice. They flooded magazines with images of flawless stones on slender fingers. They paid movie stars to wear them on screen. They whispered to grooms that anything less was a failure of love. The stone itself was common, but the story around it became rare. Ayer made the diamond feel irreplaceable, not because of its value, but because of what it supposedly proved. The campaign worked so well that a generation of brides began to expect a ring they had never thought to want. But one line would change everything. Who wrote it? Subscribe to uncover the hidden stories behind what we buy. She wrote it late one night, exhausted after a long day of drafts. Francis Geraghty, a copywriter at N.W. Ayer, needed a line for De Beers. She scribbled something down, barely thinking. The diamond is forever. She didn't know it yet, but she had just turned a rock into a religion. The slogan didn't sell a gem, it sold a promise. A diamond, Geraghty argued, could never break, never fade, never be sold. Therefore, it was the only thing worthy of a love that was supposed to last forever. The stone became a stand-in for the emotion itself. You weren't buying a piece of carbon, you were buying eternity. But the real power was in the silence. The slogan made it rude to ask the price. It made it shameful to buy a used diamond. It made it unthinkable to propose without one. The ad campaign didn't just create a habit, it created a taboo. Break it, and you were breaking the rules of love itself. And by the time the slogan was named, the slogan of the century, the idea had become invisible. It was no longer advertising, it was tradition. A truth so deep that no one remembered it had been written by a woman in Philadelphia on a tired Tuesday night. So how did this idea spread so fast? You're about to propose. You've saved, you've planned, you've even rehearsed the words. But there's one number you haven't questioned. The price tag. Why 2 months' salary? Because in the 1930s, an ad man at NW. Aya looked at a young man's paycheck and saw a target. The campaign whispered 1 month's income. A fair trade for a lifetime of love. It wasn't tradition, it was copy. But the message stuck, buried so deep that by the 1980s, when De Beers needed to push prices higher, they simply doubled it 2 months. The new rule, no one asked why. No one remembered the original. Picture the logic. A diamond has no resale value. You can't eat it, wear it, or trade it for rent. Yet the rule demands you sacrifice 2 months of labor for a stone you'll never sell. The ad agency didn't sell diamonds. They sold guilt. The fear that a smaller ring means a smaller love. And you bought it. We all bought it. But what happened when the cartel lost control? For decades, De Beers held the world's diamond supply in a velvet-gloved fist. They stockpiled rough stones in London vaults, releasing just enough to keep prices astronomical. But a monopoly built on scarcity cannot survive abundance. And abundance arrived from an unexpected direction. Not a new mine, but a laboratory. By the turn of the century, scientists had perfected the process of growing diamonds in a chamber. The result was chemically identical to a mined stone. Same carbon lattice, same fire. Yet it cost a fraction to produce. De Beers fought back. They launched a campaign to brand lab-grown diamonds as fake, even introducing a machine to detect synthetics. But the machine couldn't tell the difference, because there was none. The cartel's grip began to slip. New players flooded the market with flawless, conflict-free stones at a fraction of the old price. Suddenly, the illusion of rarity, the very foundation of the engagement ring scam, cracked. A generation raised on skepticism started asking, why pay a fortune for a rock that costs pennies to make? Today, the price of a diamond is collapsing. The monopoly that once controlled nearly all rough supply now holds a sliver. And the question hangs in the air, unanswered. What does this mean for the future of engagement rings? The campaign's legacy persists even as the industry collapses. You still hear it, whispered in jewelry store lighting, in the weight of a velvet box. A diamond is forever. The phrase became a kind of cultural gravity, pulling generations into the same purchase. But the cartel that built that gravity no longer holds the sky. De Beers' grip on the world's rough diamonds has loosened to a fraction of what it once commanded. The supply chain they engineered for a century is now a sieve, lab-grown stones, chemically identical, sell for a fraction of the price. The 2-month salary rule that invented tradition from the 1980s still echoes in engagement forums, in anxious Google searches. Yet the young couple standing in the store doesn't know the copywriter who wrote the line in 1947, exhausted after a long day. They only know the feeling that a diamond is the only way to say forever. But forever is a long time, and the market is shifting. The stone that was once a symbol of eternal love is now a commodity, its value no longer guaranteed by a single company's monopoly. The illusion worked so well that it became reality. The answer is simple. A diamond is not forever. A marketing campaign is. In 1938, De Beers had a problem. They owned mountains of glittering stones that nobody wanted. Diamonds were industrial tools, not symbols of love. So they hired an ad agency. And that agency did something unprecedented. They manufactured a tradition. They planted the idea in movies, in magazines, in the whispers of society pages. They told you that a ring without a diamond is incomplete. They told you that the price you pay measures your devotion. By 1947, a copywriter named Frances Geraghty sat down one night, exhausted, and scribbled 4 words. A diamond is forever. She didn't know she had just written the most successful lie of the 20th century. The campaign worked because it targeted your deepest fear, that your love might not be enough. So you bought the stone. You paid a month's salary. Then 2, you never asked why. Here is the lesson. When a single company controls the supply, they don't just set the price. They write the story. They tell you what to desire, what to sacrifice, what to believe. And you believe it because everyone around you believes it too. The diamond cartel is crumbling now. Lab-grown stones are flooding the market, but the tradition remains, because the story outlives the monopoly. So who is writing the next one? Look at the logo on your wrist. Look at the brand in your closet. Ask yourself, whose script are you following? The monopoly matrix, where business meets culture.